Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Moen After Dark here with Moen and my co-host Immaculate. Want to welcome you all to my neighborhood tonight. Um, Before we get started here, I want to promote this. Our bowl pick'em is still open until the 16th. You have to get your picks in. I went ahead and pinned the link in chat. You should not need a password, but if it happens to ask you for a password, Mafia 12 is the password. Mafia 12, the number one, the number two. Mafia 12, Mafia 12. Um, and I want to remind everybody here at the top of the hour, if you want to show us some support, you can give us a subscription and a like. Those are free. Those cost you nothing. If you really, really like our content, by all means, feel free to join our membership. We've got a lot of exciting new features coming around the corner, including a members only section and some fun member contests as well. We defer to members' chats in the chat, but I'm going to try to get as many as I can to get to as many comments as I can tonight. This is what Moen After Dark is all about: answering your guys' questions, uh, hearing your comments, getting your feedback. Super chats always get answered, but like I said, we'll try to get as many as we can, but we do defer to members first. So, anything you want to start off with today, Immaculate?
Well, you know me, I'm always down for realignment talk, but I don't know if we want to do that first with Chad or if we want to get into some of the talk about what's going on in Florida. Also, big news today the TRO that went involved, which is basically anyone involved in the waiver policy of the NCAA right now, is free to move. So I don't know how many people are in that. I don't think it's open game for anyone to just go jump now, but however many are in that waiver process right now, that queue just got cleared. So we've got a few things to talk about. We'll take your pick.
Well, let's start with Florida State since you weren't, or Florida State AG since you weren't here last night. What are your thoughts on Ashley Moody? That's the name of the episode. Is Better Call Ashley. What do you think about that whole lawsuit that she's put forth?
Well, I think it's interesting that she deemed to say that she's a Gator and she's from University of Florida, and she made the stance. So it came across as very political to me, but she did file. So it wasn't just talk. There was action that went with it. Kind of tells me there's some Florida State money guys, money people, whomever is spending some money to make some things happen. You can get talk from a politician if you just ask them, but to get action, you got to pay. And so I think that they're lining this up. And if anyone thinks that this is just about going after the CFP, that's done. That's hope. Like, you're not going to get anything. And next year is the 12 team. So if anyone thinks that's the main gig here, I would have to disagree heavily. This is about getting some information from the CFP that will help them in their attempt to get out of the ACC, whether that be some talk behind the scenes between them and ESPN or whatever, saying, we got to have the SEC team in, not the ACC team, anything that'll help them in that case. And if they already have government guys on their side, that brings up the conversation of sovereign immunity. If they are granted that, the ACC will not be able to sue them to hold on to their broadcasting rights should they leave the conference. And that basically scratches the gore. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's kind of my thoughts when I saw it was, woo, this getting a little spicy.
Yeah, that is. It seems to be the prevalent theory that I've seen mentioned out there on X/Twitter as well, that this is all just the first step towards the sovereign immunity argument. By bringing the state government into it, it's getting the legislators will be motivated to move on it. Florida State leaves, the ACC sues, the state legislator steps in. That's my understanding on it. I don't know if it's effective. I don't think it's really been pressed at this level yet.
Yeah, it might be precedent setting.
Yeah, it could be precedent setting. You're absolutely right. So let's say hi to some people.
Who do we got?
Nathan Campbell says hi, guys. Hey, Nathan Campbell. Daniel Gygax. I love that last name.
Gigs.
Gygax. Casting for Crumbs here in the house. Member. Oh, he has an answer. It might not be a good one. Well, let us know what your question is, Nate. We'll get it answered for you.
He did ask a question. I saw it come through, but we were just getting started.
Glenn Lumens, good morning from the Philippines, where it's nice and sunny. It's cold and gray here in Ohio. We've only got 4 more months of that, 5 months maybe.
Just come visit Arizona.
Yeah, and then we'll get summer. Won't have spring. What
There's a question.
confirmation go to 11 trans?
I don't know. Is that code?
What if the confirmation go to 11? I don't.
Does
Nathan,
he mean
could
the
you?
confirmation on the bull pick'em thing?
To 11 trans. I'm not sure. Let us see if you can clarify that for us, Nathan. I'd love to answer your question. It's Bob Knight back from the grave. Hey, don't get me started. Don't give me a roll of toilet paper and a folding chair, whatever you do.
Imagine if you had Bob Knight trying to do a show like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. That would have been excellent.
I had some great Bobby Knight clips at one time when he passed. You're going to go out there and make me look like an asshole by losing this game.
That would have actually been a good show, now that I think about it. Bob Knight does Mr. Rogers'
Bob
Neighborhood.
Knight does Mr. Rogers. Let me
excellent.
tell you something, you little punks. You're going to make me look like a jerk off by not playing the game right. Donahue. I loved Donahue when I was growing up. Let me ask you a question here. Who's the guy on the left? It's Phil Donahue. For kids who remember. He prefer. You missed it last night. I had my Camaro on stream. I had my IROC Z28.
I was able to look in at the very end, and
okay.
and so just enough time for me to know that there's a certain word that I can't say, otherwise I'm drinking a lot tonight.
Yeah, we're gonna try and keep the drinking down tonight.
Yeah,
I like his Moen does look like former Texas Tech coach Bob Knight. That's Indiana coach, and former Ohio State alumni Bob Knight. A lot of people don't know that the last time Ohio State won a national championship, Bob Knight was on the team.
Damn, that's a long time.
It was 1968, I believe. He throws verbal bombs.
It's all right. Ohio State's a football school.
That's right. Mike Penswick. Okay. That'll get me a lot of love in Ohio. Immaculate, please make sure your cat waves his tail in front of your face. My wife thinks it's hysterical.
We'll see. We'll see what I can do on that. If one of them comes around, I'll grab him up.
GG. I don't know what that is. But if you say I'm looking like him, I'll take it. Obviously, Nathan's DEI team is slacking. All these white guys that never get invited to the mayor of Boston's Christmas party. Okay.
Must be something going on.
I'm again Gen X'd out on this one. Yeah. Teams. I think he's referring to his question from earlier, but what if the confirmation go to 11 teams? Oh, I think he's asking what if the conference splits into 2 11-team divisions?
Which conference are we talking about?
I'd assume you would have to be Big Ten going to 22.
Yeah. People wonder, like, how does it get bigger than 20? I don't personally think it goes bigger than 20 until we get new division rules. It's just too big.
I think we go to 20 and then we go to 24.
But if we get that big, though, we kind of have to divide up into little regions, divisions or whatever. Otherwise, it's just you're not playing the schools that are actually next to you very often. I mean, that's still kind of a thing. You want people to travel from the other team to come. And
Daniel, I actually live closer to West Virginia than I do Columbus. So, and I've been to Morgantown more times than I really wanted to, but my significant other has worked down there at the Kennedy Center. So, Bob Knight and Jack Nicklaus at OSU together. You're right. It was incredible. Greatest golfer that ever lived. Yeah, Phil Donahue, local legend here in Ohio, along with Jerry Springer. Don't forget Havlicek. Yeah, that was a great team, that Ohio State team. No Beard, so no West Virginia. Yeah, well, give me a few days. Bob was a bench warmer along with Doug Gottlieb's dad, Bob. Well, still got a ring.
They like their bobs.
Yeah. I live close to what will now be known, I think, as Buckeye National Forest. They're changing the name. People got pissy and they're changing the name of National Forest. So, but
Wow.
that's where I live next to.
I don't even want to ask, do I?
Some guy in the Revolutionary War was mean to indigenous people, and so they're taking his name off the park. It's stupid. It's stupid.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm close to Meigs County, Mike. I'm close to Meigs County, where all that Meigs County gold is grown. But let's talk about conference realignment. That's what everybody wants to talk about. What were your thoughts? You said you had some thoughts on Clemson before we started tonight. Let's hear them.
Seems to be the popular pick by a lot of people, and I can certainly understand why. When you look at them, probably you'd say it's the number 2 value in the ACC. My response to that, though, is right now. That's how they've been for the past few years. Credit to them. They've certainly had their down times, and I tend to think that their uptime has been largely due to their coach. But that's because he's one hell of a recruiter. Problem is, the world is changing in college football. It's no longer so much going to be about how well you recruit out of high school, because you're going to lose half your team every year anyways, or whatever it's going to be. It's going to continue to get more and more, I'm going to say, insane when it comes to the transfer portal until we just see how much this breaks. A lot of kids, they're not getting picked up. They're then having to go walk on elsewhere, but they're not the big names, so no one pays much attention. But, it's real. So I tend to question how long that's going to last while college football is changing so much right now, and while they've shown that they don't really like it at Clemson. So I have to ask, okay, what's Clemson's value if they did kind of get mediocre in football? I mean, you're still probably going to have good stadium, good following at the stadium. So, still pluses. But if they're not really in the running for things like we saw this year, their ratings pretty much got cut in half. I don't know if that's a good pairing to go with Florida State. Florida State's already kind of the network pick, in terms of Big Ten. Right. That's your pick for the networks. Now, I mean, that doesn't mean that Ohio State and Penn State, maybe Michigan and some others don't love that for just, being part of it. But it's not really going to be like, the president's pick and the academics pick. It's a football pick. It's a TV pick. Fox is going to do backflips over it. I mean, to steal Florida State away from ESPN, that's a home run for them. You could pretty much throw anyone with them, and Fox would be like, yeah, sure, whatever. Don't care. Florida State and who? Wake Forest? Okay, fine, whatever. Because the way the deal's set up, they only have to show that other team twice a year, and they can put it on FS1. They can do whatever with it. So I tend to think if all Clemson brings is their football, it's not quite enough for the Big Ten. I don't know.
I don't disagree. And how long is Dabo Swinney going to be there? I think the logical jump is that when Nick Saban goes, Dabo Swinney is the head coach at Alabama.
That's probably in their top 3.
Right. So, I mean, can you really put all your eggs in one basket, hoping Dabo stays there and then hoping Dabo turns that program around into a winning program?
This is a long-term thing. I think when most people look at realignment, this isn't a dig. This is just, people are living in the now, and they're looking at now and they're saying Clemson is valuable. We want them. Okay, but what about 10 years from now? About 20 years from now? I mean, we're still going to have Clemson. We're not kicking anyone out. Maybe that starts, but it hasn't happened before. So I'm not going to assume that we're going to kick them out. It's probably not going to happen. So if that's all they bring, and you're already bringing in, let's say, USC, Oregon, Washington, we're going to put Florida State in this. I mean, if that's happening, you got those. You got Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State. You've got a program in Nebraska you want to build up. You got a program in Wisconsin you want to build up. You got a program hopefully in Iowa that can figure out what they're doing here in the next few years. That's a whole lot of wins that you need. But who are they getting those wins over?
Right. And you got to include Michigan State in there as well.
Yeah, I keep forgetting them because they haven't been doing well, but they are.
Right.
They're a major brand. They're a bigger brand than Iowa. It's just the truth. I mean, they're on. I'd put them on par with like a Nebraska or maybe even with maybe just Wisconsin, but they're up there. I mean, they were in a CFP not that long ago.
Yeah, Maryland's turned some heads too. I know.
Maryland, they just got themselves a new quarterback recruit as well. They're surprisingly building slowly, which is exactly what you need a school like Maryland to do. Same with Rutgers. There's some talk that they might get themselves a quarterback in the transfer portal. If they do, they might be something. So, point being, I don't know if we need two powerhouses, especially if one of those powerhouses doesn't seem to hold up its end of the deal when it's not doing great. Florida State, on the other hand, does. They play like crap. They still get ratings in over 3. So you bring them into the Big Ten with their brand name and everything. Like, you don't even necessarily need them to win, but Clemson you do. So I like something else that has value for the conference if they aren't winning. And I don't have my drink next to me, but that's GT in my opinion.
There you go. There's your first drink of the night. That's Georgia Tech, guys. Mr. Monkey says, "Can we get a request for your get-ups?" I'll tell you what. When we get the members only section up and running, members can vote on my get-up one night. I'll pick a character. I'll pick 4 characters.
Nice.
Y'all can vote on them. And if we get like a $50 super chat, I'll do a costume change midstream. Let's take a look here. Greg Swain, my adopted dad got his PhD in aeronautical engineering from Ohio State during that period. That would be the time to get it. That'd be the time when, the Apollo mission was going on.
Nice.
Pomeroy, Grand at Point Pleasant, Ohio. Know that area extremely well. Birthplace of Ulysses S. Grant. I prefer UNC with FSU. So do I, but it doesn't seem like the UNC is going to be happening. If we're to believe the sources from Greg Pflugar, they're probably going to put a commissioner in there or a chancellor in there who's going to be pro SEC. If that's the case,
seems to have been a little bit of a coup there.
Yeah,
I would love to have them, and I think you would too. But I would only see them as the second stage. I don't see them as joining Florida State. They're going to sit back and see what kind of chaos that first announcement, whatever happens. Like maybe Florida State doesn't announce for a particular conference; they just announce their intentions to leave.
Yes,
and then you wait and see what kind of chaos that causes. I don't see UNC being part of that first wave. It's just not, especially not if they're busy trying to figure out which direction they'd go in if they had the opportunity. I mean, you can't really jump in the pool if you haven't learned how to swim yet, so to speak.
Jim F., I wanted to bring this up, so this is a great segue. Herbie and Feinbaum are doing everything they can to further piss off FSU today. Doubling down on everyone else is better crap. If you haven't seen it yet, you have to go see Kirk Herbstreit's tweet because it is apoplectic to say the least. He has finally snapped on people who are accusing him of I don't know.
What's funny is he was actually responding to someone who was being nice to him. Like they were just like, "Hey, I haven't how to explain this," and he just kind of blew up on, and like you can just see him going just going crazy with someone else. Some guy from Barstool who said, "Hey, we could teach you how to phrase this better," because it just looks like he just threw it all right on there, and he didn't really think it through in advance. And not that we don't all make some tweets like that every now and again, but when you're him with what's going on and you have that spotlight on you, it looks like he's cracking a little bit. And to top it off, their logic is just absolutely flawed. And I made a few posts on it today, and I've seen some from you, and people finally starting to get it. Like the actual eye test does not even say what they say it says. It does not say Alabama. I mean, we can go into that a little bit if you want to, but that's a little bit of a rant.
Right. This all comes down to this year. It's the four best, but I don't think at any point in the history of the 14 playoff has it ever been the four best teams. In
No,
it's always been the four most deserving.
Mm-hmm.
So it just seems like it's a different application of the rules this year because the SEC was on the verge of getting left out, and ESPN couldn't have that.
No, and they've said this whole best thing before. That's not like a new terminology. They've said that, but as you say, it's all worked out so that it's both.
Right.
You know, this year did not provide that, and they kind of showed the truth, whereas before it was kind of the truth was never really shown. But that this is an invitational tournament. It's not a playoff. It's not a you earned your way into this. It's purely about invitational ratings, numbers, how much money we make off of it, and how much we can disperse to everybody. That's an invitational tournament, and that's fine, but that's not how they're presenting it. They're presenting it like it's a playoff. I mean, it's right in the name. It's the playoff. I mean, I don't know how you kick out
an undefeated champion.
Yeah, and to say that they're showing that they can't play by what happened against Louisville, they had a third string kid in there, and their defense shut down Louisville, who had a pretty good offense. And so I'm looking at this going, I think they look like a pretty good team. What are you talking about? That kid's not going to play in the CFP if they get brought in. It's going to be the second stringer. I don't get it. Alabama barely beat Auburn. Auburn got smoked by New Mexico State, blah, blah, blah. We've all seen this. New Mexico State loses the Liberty by a whole lot more. I don't see how Alabama even looks good. I mean, you can look at them and say, yeah, they got a bunch of studs on that team. That doesn't mean they're playing like one of the top four schools. I mean, it's not like this was even in early season. The early season, they lost to Texas, and Texas is in this. So now, what if Texas and Alabama play in the championship? And Texas loses to them, and we have a champion that 1-1, that went 1 win, 1 loss against Texas, and now we're crowning them champion. Like, this is Alabama, LSU all over again, possibly. It's just, I don't understand where any of this makes sense other than it's simply ESPN and SEC strong-arming the CFP into saying your job is to make as much money for everyone as is possible. And if you don't have an SEC team in there, no one's going to watch. And there's no precedent to say you're wrong because the SEC's been in this for every single year. So I think that their arguments are garbage. They don't actually make sense. But, it's big business, I guess.
Well, I'm going to get a little rant here about Kirk Herbstreit.
Get it.
Kirk Herbstreit is a sanctimonious asshole. He moved away from Columbus, Ohio because of Ohio State fans. And we know this because he legitimately brought it up after he moved. It's not an airport. You don't have to announce your departure, Herbie. The second point I would make is there was a local radio guy here in Columbus, Ohio, who made a comment on Twitter that's it was something along the lines of, when will Desmond Howard die so he can get off so I don't have to see him on my TV screen every Saturday. It was obviously a tongue-in-cheek comment. And of course, Herbstreit went off the rails and how terrible, how awful, basically got the guy fired.
Wow.
The guy lost his job. He fortunately got rehired on the #1 radio show in Columbus. But, Kirk Herbstreit, it was clearly a tongue-in-cheek comment. It wasn't legitimate like he was hoping death upon Desmond Howard. He just got tired of seeing him on his TV like 95% of Americans. So that's the kind of guy Herbstreit is. It's always been. He always thinks he's up here and everybody else is down here. Mm-hmm. He is not a member of the Vox Populi, as it were. That's the end of my rant. He's an asshole. I get it. He's an Ohio State alum, but that doesn't stop him from being an asshole.
Is he persona non grata with Ohio State folks, or is he generally accepted by most Ohio State folks?
Well, his son plays on Ohio State. He's still accepted there.
No kidding.
but we still think he's an asshole. For most fans, I mean, when you go out of your way to say, "Hey, I left Columbus because you're assholes," and I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, where apparently no assholes exist.
Yeah, SEC territory.
Yeah,
Nashville's a nice town, but
oh
you
yeah,
don't have to make a big deal of it.
It's not an airport. You don't need to announce your departure. Good evening, ladies and jelly spoons. Go Dogs. Mike Smith retorts back with Go Huskies. And this is an attempt, obviously, to get us to drink. If North Carolina, Virginia, and Florida State are the top three, who is four?
That is going to get me to drink if I answer that.
I think we all know what the answer would be.
Kyle is sneaky.
Coy said it. I'm not. If you want to drink, Georgia Tech. How valuable is Clemson after losing the 2012 Orange Bowl 70-33? Clemson regrouped well. I can't disagree with that.
Yeah, I mean, they're valuable right now. I'm not going to say they're not. It's just when you add someone to your conference, that's a forever thing. That school in Atlanta will forever have all the other stats that you want out of a school to add. If it takes them a decade to build up their football program again, then okay, that's fine. If they don't ever play good football, they're still a great ad. And you need someone to lose, and doing it in Atlanta where, recruits can all come and watch Ohio State beat up on Georgia Tech or USC beat up on Georgia Tech. That's not a bad thing. So I think people are caught up in, the Clemson's a champion, been to the CFP multiple times. That's who we should add. And I'm going to say, oh, hold up 1 second. Maybe not.
Mr. Monkey Says had some requests. Well, you have to be a member when we put this poll up, but I'll keep it in mind. Barry Gibbs, Salvador Dali. I could probably pull those off. Liberace.
The last one.
Charo. Charo's going to be tough. I don't think I can get my tits that big. The Hunchback of Notre Dame I could do.
You going to wear something from Notre Dame?
Yep.
Oh.
And I'll put a big old pillow in my back, too. And I'll say, ring the bell. UW just signed a bio male to women's volleyball. Florida has a law to protect women's sports. How do they coexist? I don't know. That's
way above my pay grade.
Way above my pay grade. I'm not even trying to get into that shit.
Sorry, Jim. I get the point, but yeah.
Stinks to see West Virginia. Yeah, that was West Virginia who gave that beat down to Clemson. I remember that because I had it on a 3-game parlay, and that was my last game, and West Virginia sealed it for me.
I got West Virginia winning my bowl pick.
Yeah. I like West Virginia.
They're going to actually care in that bowl. That's the toughest part about bowl picks is like, which team is going to care?
Clemson cost Woody Hayes his job during the Gator Bowl. No, Woody Hayes cost Woody Hayes his job. You can't just go punching people. It's not like you're the head coach of Michigan basketball. You can't just go punching people and get away with it. Yeah, they don't. They lost the Big East. When the Big East collapsed, West Virginia's recruiting really went in the toilet.
That's why I like USF for the Big 12. Get that UCF-USF combo going. That means twice as many trips to Florida. Good little rivalry.
Yeah, getting UCF, that'll pick it up a little bit. But I think when they had the Big East with Miami, they just had such a better pipeline down there. Herbie had a full-on boomerang. No, that's just Herbie being Herbie. This is just the real Kirk Herbstreit. Which schools are the best for other than?
Just said some others.
What I'm looking for.
I saw him say something other than, I think.
Not Louisville or Pitt. He replied. Who are the best realignment schools for the Big 12 other than Louisville and Pitt?
Coming from the ACC or all around?
He just says realignment schools, so we can take.
I think the obvious ones are Virginia Tech and North Carolina State. I still think that. Look, I'm just going to be honest. I think that the Big 12 might possibly lose something in the future. So I still think that Oregon State's a great pickup for them. Washington State. If I'm going back out east, I like USF. Tampa Bay is a great area. You can get north and south from there. Anyone else from the ACC? I don't know. I think it's Louisville, Pitt. I'll say it. I think possibly Clemson. If the SEC is really going to end up having to go with the North Carolina and Virginia schools in order to do anything, I think Clemson's kind of sitting out. But if the Big 12 adds Clemson, the Big 12 is getting a new deal. That's not staying at 31.7. So if you were to have like Clemson and Pitt, Louisville, USF to get you more Florida, I don't think you're making 31.7 every year anymore. I think you're getting closer to 35 to 40, probably 40.
Yeah, I would throw in there Syracuse or UConn, get you the New York market, get you more travel partners. You need travel partners out there for West Virginia. West Virginia's been on an island way too long.
That's why I like that West Virginia, Cincinnati, Louisville, Pitt thing.
Yeah.
Nice little quad. So that way, if you go to 4-team divisions in the future, it's already pre-made. If you got to add more to go to 5 or 6, well, you can figure that out after that. Another school I would add, is ECU. I think that like
East Carolina Pirates.
If North Carolina State and North Carolina both go to the SEC, people don't like to think about it, but ECU, good stadium, great crowd, big school, and a whole brand new state that opens up to you. So I would put them in there as something for people to think about, maybe in the future.
Herbie's rant in a nutshell. Get off my lawn. I don't disagree. I would put it the Simpsons meme, though. Remember Grandpa Simpson yelling at the clouds? Somebody needs to put Herbie's face on there and then put FSU Twitter up in the clouds.
I just don't like because it's him saying, except that my opinion is better than yours.
Well, that's Kirk Herbstreit.
And he's all like, I've watched this every week. Yeah, we all do.
Yeah.
We all do. In fact, we probably watch more than you because you're in the middle of like one game. Whereas we're flipping around watching a lot. So we might actually watch more than Herbstreit.
Yeah. I like this comment. Feinbaum would throw a bitch fit if Bama or Georgia would have been left out too. He is such a twat.
Oh, yeah.
And with that, I will let you guys know we're not getting any advertiser revenue on this stream. So if you would, feel free to give us a super chat. That'd be much appreciated. Also, give us a like and a subscribe. That costs you absolutely nothing. Helps boost us in the algorithm, gets us out there to more people, so more people can come on here and we can call Paul Feinbaum a twat. It's all money driven. Well, that's true. It's pretty sad. I don't disagree. They also say Alabama's a better team at end of the year. If that's the case, how can you use that win to get Texas in? Well, how can you use it? They should have lost to Auburn. How if you were better at the end of the year do you almost lose to a team that got blown out by a G5 school the week before?
No one from the SEC, ESPN will talk about that. Like, we're not talking about going that far back. This is back-to-back weeks at the end of the season. We're talking Auburn scheduled New Mexico State in their cupcake week, that second to last week that the SEC does, and they got smoked in that. And then the very next week, Alabama comes to town and they almost beat Alabama. It's not like it's, at different times of the season, a team can be two different teams. It's back-to-back. And people might say, oh, they look past New Mexico State. I don't care. Not a pass. It's really not. You play that game. And if you don't pay attention to that game and you get beat up on it, well, you're still getting beat up. I mean, like, if you ever played, when you're playing and you're getting beat up, you kind of wake up and go, okay, here we go. That never happened. Never happened once. So I don't think the SEC is as good as it's been in the past. I think transfer portal and other things have taken away talent from there that they used to have. And I don't think they have a talent advantage anymore.
I want to get to this comment. Remember when in the BCS days when Oklahoma and USC and Auburn were all undefeated and the SEC got left out? USC and OU were bigger brands. I do agree with you. That absolutely happened. There's also the situation with the Florida State. Herb Street brought it up in his tweet. Florida State jumped a better Miami team to get into the national championship. But damn, that Auburn, I think they ended up playing Virginia Tech that year in their bowl game. And Virginia Tech really gave them a run for their money. They didn't even win till the fourth quarter. And Oklahoma USC, I think, was yeah, that's one of the arguments of why we had a 4-team playoff, because there were deserving teams that were getting left out. And now we're having a 12-team playoff because there's deserving teams that are being left out. But eventually we're going to have a 16-team playoff because there's going to be deserving teams getting left out. There's always going to be deserving
conference playoffs.
Yeah. There's always going to be deserving teams get left out, guys.
And this is the lesson. That's the lesson we're getting right now, is that even if you go to 12, you're still going to have it. Why? Because the payout for participation is the same. No matter how many games you play in the CFP, your payout's the same. So they're playing just to get into the tournament. So when you get down to number 13, number 14, and number 12, and all of them are 9-3, and all of them have flaws, you don't think that the debating is going to be crazy to see who gets in? Because it's not going to be so obvious. Like right now, in our opinion, this was obvious that Florida State should have got in. But if you were to look at right now who's 13 and all that and who gets in, it's not obvious. You're going any, mini, miny, mo at that point in time. So I don't think that the next 2 years are going to be less stressful in that regard. I think it's going to be more.
Listen, there's always going to be deserving teams left out. My issue with Florida State getting left out is that they've run this as the 4 most deserving teams, it seems, from the inception of this 4-team playoff. The 4 best teams have only come up, this year. I would just like a little consistency on how it's judged.
Oh, sure. And it's not the same thing, but I'm just saying, when next year comes around, the calamity, the problem, the issue will be something else. There'll be, and it'll run along conference lines. There will be like some SEC team that gets that last spot, and maybe some Big 12 folks are saying we should have got that. Look, our number 2 team was better than their number 4. Something, I don't know. It'll be something, and so that's why I would just think that we should get away from the subjective type of a tournament, go more towards each conference having their own playoffs. The winner goes on. Boom, you have a tournament of champions. I don't care if some of the games in that are not as good. I really don't. I would rather give teams that deserve it a shot to do it. And if it doesn't work out, oh well. This whole thing that we have to prune the tree just properly to get the absolute best matchup, it doesn't always prove out. Like, it's just chaos, folks. I'm sorry. You can't make the most perfectly pruned games and always have great games. So I agree. It's unfortunate, but it's also maybe the best example that we'll have going forward of why 2026 needs to make a bigger change than just expanding the tournament more.
Jose, Desmond Howard seems like a robot clone who never ages. Very odd. No, robots show more emotion than Desmond Howard does.
Man, chat is going wild, aren't they? We're trying to keep
Everybody's getting shit on tonight here on the Moen After Dark.
I'm going to go real short with my answer because I want to keep up. I'm watching chat right now, and there's just a lot of good chat going on.
Only time Desmond was great was on TV when he was in uniform, and yes, I'm old enough to remember. Hey, so am I. He was
good on the field.
Yeah, he was. I can't deny that. Put up better numbers all around, still lost to UW 2-0. The best argument is garbage. Yes.
He said that on Twitter too, and I totally was like, yeah, that's another example of why what people think and what they see just should not matter. Oregon, if that's the case, Oregon would have been in and Washington would have lost.
Can we talk about portal QBs and where they landed and where they're going to land? And
I don't know. I mean, it's such chaos. It's who's offering more money.
The interesting thing is see where Cam Ward lands, because it looks like he's down to Florida State, Miami. He did a tour at Miami, and now he's at Florida State. Miami has the drug money, so they've offered more cash than Florida State. But the interesting thing to me is, where does that leave DJU? Is he just waiting to see who Cam Ward doesn't pick?
I just find it interesting that if he wants to go back and get into the ACC again.
Well, he could want a little bit of revenge against Dabo Swinney and Clemson.
I think that's probably the best guess. I don't want to attribute that to him, but when you have as much option as he probably has out there, I
think he's hoping that Cam Ward takes Miami, because if you go to Florida State, you're an instant contender.
But is Jordan Travis done?
I think with that injury, I think he's done.
That sucks.
But yeah, I would imagine that he's hoping that Cam Ward takes Miami so he can go to Florida State. Florida State's, with that defense, they're going to be a contender for years to come.
Don't say
Dream
it.
scenario is Florida State causes. I think Florida State and Georgia Tech are easy ads if open. Dream scenario is Florida State causes Notre Dame to move too. Nobody's going to cause Notre Dame to move.
I'm glad some people see the value of Georgia Tech. I know some people are like, you're crazy, and that's fine. People can think that, but I was like, why don't people see the value? My only thing is why they may not get in is they may not have the money or the capability to do that as one of the first wave. And that might be the only reason why Clemson gets it, is because they're prepared and ready.
Yeah, I just don't think Notre Dame's going to move anywhere.
No.
I think they're staying in the ACC. They've built that conference for themselves.
Yeah.
Everybody in the ACC who matters to them is pledged fealty to Notre Dame. So they get their California schools and Stanford. Even if the Big Ten took the USC game off the table, I don't think it moves Notre Dame at this point.
I know it's probably coincidence, but the fact that their NBC deal and the Big Ten's deal both end in 29, I don't care if it's coincidence or not. It's convenient. Like, I don't care if it was meant to or not. The fact that they could easily just swap over, and NBC has deals with both, so it doesn't hurt them. So they're just going to sit back and see how this all plays out.
Yeah, Sergeant Pickles letting Casting for Chrome know the Huskies are the favorite to land Will Rogers from Mississippi State. I don't know who Ohio State's going to land.
I'm thinking the guy from Texas.
I'm hoping the guy from Texas, Malik Murphy. We recruited him coming out of high school before we took Quinn Ewers.
He's saying all the right things, like you were saying. Like, Ohio State doesn't just hand out money, and he's sitting there saying, "I just want to go somewhere where I can play." I mean, it's almost like he'll
get a chance to compete if he comes to Ohio State.
I think that's what he's signaling. He wants to come there.
Yep, and we will gladly take him. Georgia Tech and Tulane have the distinction of resigning the SEC membership due to academics. That's 100% true. I want to see Moen as Ron Burgundy.
Ooh.
Okay, you're a member. When we put that poll up, I'll remember that choice.
My vote as well.
Get me the red blazer out. Sergeant Pickles, that's a great pickup. Where does Ty Thompson end up? Now, this is an interesting one.
Mm-hmm. I saw this one.
He hasn't really played that much at Oregon, the few glimpses we've seen.
And I know why Casting's asking this, too, because of the rumor where he's looking at going.
Is he looking at going to Oregon State?
Mm-hmm. That's the rumor going around. I don't know if it's true, but, it's local. It's there. They have a need. He doesn't have to, go make a big, large move somewhere else and learn a whole new surrounding culture. I mean, there's a different culture between the schools, but in terms of, just the Oregon State culture and good chance he's going to play there. That's his problem, is that he hasn't had a chance to show anything. So who's going to take the chance on him when Oregon won't? What does that tell another big program if they are not willing to? When he was a 5-star recruit, he's been there for a year or two.
Yeah, he was a 5-star coming out.
If you're a big program, you're looking at this going, what does Oregon know that we don't? Whereas Oregon State's I mean, they can roll the dice on him, and I mean, he's not going to be terrible. He's 2 years of learning and being behind Bo Nix there, and I'd say he might come out and do pretty well. So I think that's probably a good chance for Oregon State to maybe pick that up.
I'm most interested to see who Lincoln Riley lands at USC. I know there's been talk about the Kansas State quarterback possibly going there. I don't know. That's going to be interesting to me to see how. I mean, he had a down season this year with Caleb Williams, but how bad is it going to be next year?
I don't know, man. That USC is such a mess.
If the Big takes Florida State and Georgia Tech, drink. Then which way would the SEC go? Clemson, Miami, UNC, and NC State, or UNC, NC State, Virginia, Virginia Tech?
The second.
Yeah, I tend to agree with it would be the latter. They want to increase their geographic footprint, get into new markets. That gets them all of Virginia and all of North Carolina.
Great rivalries, too. You got UNC, Virginia, UNC, NC State, Virginia, Virginia Tech, North Carolina State. And, that's 2 games each. That's all you need from them. And then if, say, Alabama's having a roll and they come through, then Virginia Tech, North Carolina State, they both have great stadiums, great fans. It's good on TV. So I think that if you have to take all 4 in order to get 2, then I think that's what they do. And then they make sure the Big Ten can't go straight down the Eastern Seaboard and basically invade the South.
Yeah. Yeah, and that basically adds the last 2 states of the Confederacy to the SEC.
Uh-huh.
I tweeted out to Herbie that I want to meet his dog more than him. Yeah, Ben gets a lot of love on Twitter.
You probably caused it with that one right there. You caused the meltdown.
Snap.
That was it.
Sergeant Pickles says, talking out my rear end, could see Oklahoma State to the SEC, Kansas, Colorado, or Utah, depending to the Big Ten, depending on what happens.
We have talked about all of those as possibilities in the same regard.
Yeah, I'll get somebody to come on here and tell me I'm wrong again, but I still see Texas A&M joining the Big Ten at the end of that deal.
It might be me saying that, but I think that's just because I don't want to see Iowa playing at Texas A&M and having the yell guys going off. That place is so different. I think Texas A&M and Virginia Tech would also be a good rivalry. Just have cadets on both sides.
What about Kentucky, Memphis?
I mean,
I guess that's kind of a rivalry in basketball.
Is it? I'd say
good
Memphis
basketball
could
teams.
go in and play Vanderbilt or Tennessee. I mean, those schools don't want Memphis, though. Memphis actually is a public school, so I don't think Tennessee wants them there at all.
The bowl picking WVU over UNC.
Oh yeah, I don't think UNC is going to be that good in that bowl. I don't think they're going to give a shit. Sorry.
How many confidence points did you put on it, though?
I didn't change any of those. I wasn't quite sure. I can always go back and do that.
Make sure everybody who's participating in that, make sure you go in and set your confidence points. Otherwise, you're just going to get the default. And, the game that you're most confident on, give it the most amount of points.
Yeah, we should probably go over that at some point in time with everybody.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get through these comments.
Yeah,
wow.
They're flying, man. I'm watching, trying to keep up.
I'm still pissed that Cal didn't beat that Auburn team. Well,
almost, wasn't it? That was pretty close, wasn't it?
I don't follow Cal football enough to tell you.
Cal ended up not being terrible. To be honest, they had a good offense. If we could have had Cal's offense with Iowa's defense, we would have won the Big Ten. I'm serious.
They had a great linebacker there that's visiting Ohio State this weekend.
Yeah, they were not as good as.
Yeah. No, I think that's 100%. This is true of the Big Ten as well. The Big Ten is very top heavy. That's why adding teams like Washington, Oregon, USC, and UCLA is going to make things a lot more interesting next year. I don't think we're going to be as top heavy. I think you could see a 2-loss Big Ten champ coming out of there.
Could be interesting.
Yeah, Bama sneaking in. Yeah, again, there's always going to be deserving teams that get left out, guys. Nobody's arguing that. I'm just arguing the metrics of
This time was really obvious. Like,
right. Yeah,
I mean,
it's
oof.
you can't make it a beauty pageant now
because it was multi-tiered. It wasn't just Alabama compared to Florida State. It was Alabama lost to Texas. Does Texas deserve to have Alabama in the same tournament? I mean, even if we just take Florida State out of the situation, there's still a problem when you look at it from the Texas perspective, in my opinion.
Yeah. Sergeant Pickles brings up a great point here. I said this last night, too. I wonder if Florida State could win a lawsuit suing for the amount of a CFP payout. It's not just Florida State that would be getting paid there. The ACC would need to get paid as well.
This is part of the angle that people might need to look at this and go, there might be a little more, I don't want to call it corruption, just the ACC itself may not have been as supportive for FSU getting in as you think. The payout from the CFP is equal to all the power conferences. And if they had numbers to show that Alabama not being in would cause so much of the SEC not to view, and the payout would be lower. And then you have North Carolina State with Boo, and maybe they didn't support FSU at all just because they actually think that their payout will be bigger if Alabama goes. So it's just kind of a slimy business situation.
Sky, when do you think FSU will leave the ACC? Will they announce their move to the Big or SEC at the same time they announce their withdrawal? Well, I think we Q1 2024, and they will announce they're going to withdraw. They're not going to announce their new conference home.
No, yeah, that would put some onus on the conferences as being part of that. Whereas if Florida State just comes out and says we're leaving, we're a free agent, we'll go independent if we have to. Well, now the conferences can say we weren't part of this. We didn't make this happen. We didn't interfere. We didn't do anything. But they've announced this, and so hey, we're going to talk to them. I kind of think that's the play, but we'll find out.
Desmond once gave a great preview of the Texas Longhorns for the Holiday Bowl. Then they go to the stadium in Texas A&M as a team playing. Oh my God, that's fantastic. As soon as we're done with the show, I'm going to go look that up. I want to see video of that. Nathan Campbell, where did the OSU quarterback? I think he's asking where Kyle McCord went. He was going to Nebraska. It looked good, and suddenly he is pulled back. So I don't know where he's going to end up.
What if Dylan Raiola decides to stick with Georgia? Because that would be so bad for Nebraska if they lost McCord. And Raiola, if anyone doesn't know, he has done a lot of changing of his mind in his short life. I think he swapped 3 different high schools. He was committed to somewhere else, and then to Nebraska, and then committed to Georgia. And now he's talking about decommitting from Georgia and committing to Nebraska again. I mean, this guy, I don't know what his game is, if he's just looking for money or if he just can't make up his mind, but he does not show much loyalty in his past.
Yeah, I said this on Greg's tweet earlier this week. I can't wait to see where he transfers to.
Yeah, I mean, if he stays with Georgia, Nebraska is FUCT.
Yeah. Mr. Rogers is a special guest tonight. You can tell by all the language we've used. Hilarious. What about the other portal from QB from OSU? Chiles. Talking about the one from Oregon State. He didn't land anywhere yet.
I saw some talk about him maybe going back because I think Michigan State also picked up another quarterback. Like, I think Chile was actually put out something that he was going to Michigan State. But then Michigan State also pulled another guy. So, we'll see how that one goes in the end. I don't know if he wants to go there and compete or sit for a year or what, but this was supposed to be his year at OSU. So
Yeah, that's the problem. A lot of these guys don't want to compete anymore. That was McCord's reason for leaving. He wasn't guaranteed the starter spot. He was told he was going to have to compete regardless of who was coming in. Sergeant Pickles doesn't acknowledge the 91 championship because all of the U were on Colombian marching powder.
Well done.
I get recently Georgia Tech drink has been down. They have a national championship in my lifetime and are in Atlanta. That's true. They won one in the 90s. I believe it was 93, 92 or 93. I think they won one.
And they stopped telling their offensive coaches what offensive game plan they had to play. I mean, that was the dumbest. So, I mean, it's Georgia Tech, and now if they can run whatever the offensive coach wants to run when he comes in that location, I don't see why they won't get better. I don't know. It's Georgia. There's a ton of recruits there.
Nathan Campbell, I think you're asking where McCord ended up. He did not end up anywhere yet, so we'll see where he visits next. Be interesting if he visits USC. See what Lincoln Riley can do with a guy who's just a pure pocket passer. Wouldn't it be ironic if the Pac-12 Washington won the national championship? No, that's called poetic justice. The final game of the Conference of Champions would be a national championship winner. Although I guess the Pac-2 is still the Conference of Champions. They didn't lose the power to stop transfers. It's only a temporary thing, Pickles. But
I mean, if you're in the process right now and you're held up for a waiver, yeah, you can jump, but no one else can just like go as well. So really, the whole process is stopped. Like anyone who's in it can just clear out and go, but I don't know if anyone else can actually jump into it. So to a degree, there's going to be a lot of movement, but then there might be no movement, if that makes sense. Yeah. Yep. It happens.
You can't.
I mean, if you're a receiver on that team, wouldn't you want to go? I fucking would.
What's the deal with the offensive coordinator position? Have they not even interviewed anybody yet?
Oh, I put something out about that today. If you saw,
I didn't see it.
They finally just put up the job on their job postings today.
Fantastic.
I mean, it doesn't mean that there isn't someone with an insider edge, and you just have to post it because you're, a public entity. But the fact that it's just coming out today, I mean, look, this guy, we've known for weeks now that he was going to be gone. People are like, oh, well, we didn't want to think about it until after the season. Bullshit. That's total bullshit. Of course he's thinking about that from the very moment he found out his son was getting fired. He's starting to think about what he's going to have to do next year. He's a head coach. He should be. He shouldn't just be thinking about today or this year. He's got to think about the future. He's the chief. Guys, we've had schools lose their coaches that have gone, and then they've replaced them all in this time span. So I do not know what's going on at Iowa. It feels like there's a little bit of a political battle going on internally. Ferentz is a big deal there. I'm sure there's some people that were not happy that him and his son were treated that way, but hopefully they can get that figured out.
Will Howard going to fight on. So it seems like Kenneth Evans thinks that Will Howard, the quarterback from KSU, is definitely the pick for Lincoln Riley at USC. A&M embodies cringe. You know what? But I'm telling you right now, if the Big had the opportunity to take A&M, they would.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that as a fan, but as an institution, I mean, it's pretty good.
TT raids the Big Ten. Oh, Texas Tech Red Raiders to the Big Ten. I don't know about that, Nathan. And it's only because they're in Lubbock. I think they would give the edge to TCU because of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. ATM has some cult-like stories with stuff that goes on there. This must be like Skull and Bones at Harvard and Yale. My in-law Uga fans are big time mad Dylan Raiola visiting Nebraska having given. Well, guess what, Jose? He gave us a committed Ohio State too before he flipped to Georgia. And before that, he was going to go to Nebraska.
Yeah, he was committed to Nebraska, so he's been all over the place. It looks to me like he's playing folks for NIL money.
Yeah, one of his uncles is a coach on Nebraska's team.
Yeah, and just before this flip, we all saw a rule come out and say a quarterback, a 5-star quarterback this year in this day and age costs you $2 million. I mean, that was basically
naming the price.
We got $2 million for you, Raiola. You sure you don't want to come back? And he'll get it. Nebraska, they'll get him that money. They're not like Ohio State. They don't have the ability to be picky. I mean, they have to make a move.
Yeah. I mean, was it Florida first and left? No, I think you're thinking of
that was Rashada,
different kid. He
at ASU.
Mm-hmm. Who TF want to go to Nebraska? LOL. I'm telling you right now, you're a rock star in Lincoln if you're on that football team.
People do not know like that. They have all the facilities. They have all the backing. That's a top tier stadium to play in. Noise-wise, size-wise, experience. I mean, what do you need out of a college campus town? Do you really want it to be in a big city? I don't think that that's better. I think you want to be in a college town where, like you're saying, you're the king. Everything is around you. I mean, it's quite the experience. And in Lincoln, if he goes there as a 5-star, as a legacy, he will be king of that town.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And for people who've never been to Lincoln, Nebraska, to actually see a game, it's impressive the amount of turnout they get for as bad a team as they've fielded for the last 10 years.
That's what those people have.
That's all they have.
What else are they going to go follow?
Football.
I mean, to some degree, it's the same in Iowa, but we're a little bit closer to Chicago, so people just go up to Chicago. But
he could have just messed up if we end up with Thompson. Well, we'll see. Oh, OPD Don's in the house. I wonder how many on the CFP committee have some sort of ACC school ties, and could that have been another factor on the snub? This has been put out there that Boo Corrigan, who is the chairman, and who was the chairman and is from North Carolina State, who flipped their vote to allow Stanford and Cal and SMU in, didn't do this as a way to give the finger to Florida State for openly talking about leaving the conference.
Yeah, because the conference pretty much gets the same amount of money whether Florida State gets in or not. I know the participant gets a payout, and that goes to the conference, but I think most conferences pay that amount straight to that school. I could be wrong. I don't know. You'd have to really get into each conference to see how they do that. But yeah, I mean, it's not a big deal to the conference. And if Florida State's actually going to leave and they know it, like here in a month or so, if you're the conference, do you really want to put them in? I don't know. I mean, because then wherever they're going, they get, the team that went to the CFP. So there's a lot to wonder about that. I mean, people will say conspiracy theory talk, and yeah, where I'm going.
Daniel Gygax corrects me. Georgia Tech won the Natty in 1990, split with Colorado. Drink.
Glad I don't have a drink right next to me.
Sergeant Pickle says, I am making a point to go see a game in Lincoln first time the Huskies go there. I'm going to tell you what right now. Any fan base you want to go see in the Big Ten, it's Nebraska. They are the most polite people, most down-to-earth people. They will give you beer. They will give you popcorn. Any way you want your corn cooked, they will cook it. Just get ready to have a shitload of corn. Corn and barbecue. Corn and barbecue. That's what you're going to find there. But they are the nicest fans in the Big Ten. They are the BYU of the Big Ten.
You might get some shit if you show up in Iowa Hawkeye black and gold during that game. But, they'll still – it's not like going to Ohio State. they're not going to give you that much trouble. But if you're a Washington fan, first year, second year, and you go in there, shit, man, you'll probably have to turn people down on offers to go to their tailgates because it's a good time. I mean, there's good people there.
Timothy Green, hell, I'm a 59-year-old retired West Virginia underground coal miner, and I wouldn't play football for $2 million right now. You know what? I would pay. I would. You can just come and hit me and cripple me for the rest of my life, and I'll live off the $2 million. I wanted Nebraska in the SEC. They're awesome in every respect. Like I said, nice people. Even when they came here to Columbus, just super nice people, polite. I don't know. I like that fan base. It's just you feel sad for them that it's been.
They're going to be back.
Yeah, how many years since Pelini was fired?
They're going to be back. Rural, NIL, transfer portal, everything that Nebraska has on campus, all the facilities, they'll be back. They needed NIL. They needed transfer portal. Now that they got that, they just needed a coach. I think they have all the pieces. I think that people might be surprised in a couple of years here what Rule does.
Kenneth Evans, I went to grad school at Nebraska and never went to a game. What did you do in Lincoln?
I know, like what did you do?
What else is there?
How did you miss that? I mean, that's like it's almost like a black hole when that happens. Like everything just gets sucked into it.
I'm going to a BYU game next year. Well, good for you casting for Chrome. I haven't I don't think Ohio State's going to schedule them, so I probably won't ever make it out there. Screw FSU is what I would say for sure if I was a voter.
I think he's talking about like the ACC. Yeah, I think the ACC some of those schools might have turned on them.
Might have got tired of hearing them complain about them. Okay, good question here from Cleveland Rocks. How do you think the court's going to rule in the Oregon State-Washington State situation?
If we're talking about the Supreme Court, I don't think they can rule that it was an unjust ruling because of the stipulation the judge put on, which is basically if you do anything with your power of two to try that would look like it would be to harm those schools, they'll come back in here and I'll pull this whole thing. I think because he did that, I just can't see the Supreme Court going against that. But I do think that there might be some bias on the Supreme Court. So right now I'm betting that they throw it to the appellate court because the appellate courts, from my understanding, can actually do a different judgment. The Supreme Court can only rule on whether the judgment was just, or they could throw it out. So I think either they throw it out or they throw it down to appellate court. That's what I think. And if they throw it out, those schools are taken back over.
Yeah, regardless of what happens, I think the best thing for all parties is to get this settled and everybody moves on. But I know that's being difficult at the moment. So Sergeant Picker says I will rock my Husky full purple and bring some smoked salmon to trade for beer. I'll let you know Nebraska does not have very good beer. You want good beer, you want to go to Ohio, go to Michigan. That's going to be your best beers in the Big Ten. The defensive player from Oregon State was making a trip to Florida State. I'm not sure who you're talking about, Nathan.
There was a linebacker that just announced.
Was it a linebacker?
I don't remember his name, though. Yeah, saw it.
Matt Rule is a roster builder, and the money is endless. That's true. They've got money.
He knows his shit.
Yeah, they've got money at Nebraska. I know it may not seem like it, but beef, corn, those things are expensive.
Plus, Nebraska
money.
Grads, they go all around the country. Like a lot of them leave and go. So and it's kind of a network. It's a little weird like that, but they're pretty well off. I mean, they got people with money all around the country that to pull in on.
How many OSU games you go to, Moen, and same for Immaculate? How many Iowa games you make? I try and make one Ohio State game a year.
I haven't gone to any for a while. I haven't lived up there. I used to when I was younger. I used to go and see a lot. I lived about an hour away, and if you know anything about Iowa, the whole Eastern Iowa there kind of seems to revolve around Iowa City when it comes to game time. Just getting there on the highway turns into a bit of a mess. But yeah, we used to go over there and check out games. It's a lot of fun. Downtown Iowa City, well, downtown, campus town. It's a lot of fun. I really like it.
Yeah, I try and go to one game a year, always. But I always go to Columbus on Sundays for brunch. So I usually meet people who are coming from the game on Sunday morning, still hungover. But yeah, it's one of those things where you've just got to experience. If anybody can get to the stadium, Ohio Stadium, it's one of those things. Just like with the Iowa Kinnick Field, the wave in the third quarter. It's just one of those experiences that, as a college football fan, you just love to be a part of it. Nebraska never match up with Michigan and or Ohio State. Of course they won't. I just don't ever see that happening. Ohio State and Michigan are at another level from the rest of the Big Ten right now.
For a while, though, Michigan was mediocre. And I don't want to say that's going to happen with Ohio State, but as we bring in more schools, I mean, what if they go down to fourth best or whatever for a year or two? I mean, it's going to be chaos. We don't know. I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't bet on Nebraska being done, but at the same time, with Rule, with money, I mean, who knows? Like, if you get some of the right pieces in there and things work out, it could happen. I mean, college football is chaos. Nothing is for sure.
Side note: I am declaring the undisputed best beer conference. Well, that 100%. I don't think there's anybody who can compete with us.
I'd probably say Wisconsin is the center of it, though. I know you
Yeah.
got the Ohio and Michigan thing going, and I'm sure there's good craft beer there. But those Wisconsin people, they drink beer like it's water.
Yeah, I would say if you make it to Columbus, Hoof Hearted Brewing is who you really need to check out on High Street and Fifth, I believe it is. Their triple and double IPAs, oh, they will just knock you out. And those guys are hilarious. So you tell them Moen sent you, and they'll still charge you full price. Oh, casting for Chrome. Telling him, or Sergeant Pickle's telling him he's got coho and Chinook. I pulled out of the river myself. Not much better than that. I think they're talking about salmon. Ped Mall in Iowa City is fantastic.
Not wrong. That's what I was thinking. It's an interesting place. You'll definitely have some interesting smells while you're there too. Fair warning.
I've never been there. What is Ped Mall?
It's just it's a pedestrian mall, but there's some little corners and little upstairs areas, and it's eclectic, we'll say.
Okay.
I mean, it's
now
also
I got to go to an Iowa game just to go figure out what Ped Mall is.
Go say, hey, where's Ped Mall? And people will just smile and point. Go over there.
How dare you, Immaculate? Ohio State will always be on top. I think he's talking about the beer.
Yeah, well, I was talking about how Ohio State may go down, with some of the new teams coming in. You never know.
Wow. Puyallup or Skycomish up here. Okay. Yes, High Street is an awesome place during a Buckeye game. I don't know how old you are, but I'm old enough to remember when they used to chain the streets on Friday nights. Stop drunks from falling into the road on North High Street. But then they cleaned the place up and got rid of that. Can't go to Mean Mr. Mustard anymore. Does Charlie Baker, MH5, does Charlie Baker and NCAA think the creation of a revenue-driven division won't affect the NCAA's cash cow, March Madness? Won't the D1 schools want the bulk of that tournament cash? Your mark looking ahead.
My thoughts on basketball is that if this happens, you're going to see a lot of this one and done stuff possibly end. A lot of guys who go up to the NBA, they're young, they think they're going to be great and they're going to do all that, and then it doesn't pan out, and they end up playing for the G League. If they're going to start getting paid more, I think you're going to see some of the power schools start to come back. We've seen the one and done has not been good on some of the main power schools, like I think Kentucky, North Carolina. I think if that happens, I think that those schools are going to once again dominate March Madness. It's going to be back like the old days. You're going to see, you might even see a rise of like an Indiana again, because it's just who's going to support that? Who's going to throw money at that? I mean, basketball schools are going to rise again. Think about a Georgetown. It's going to change things. I think it's going to change things in basketball, maybe even more than it does in football.
All right. Do you guys have any opinion on how multiple time zone travel over a small window will affect the field product or sports? That's to be seen. I know a lot of people think it will. I know it probably won't have much of an impact on football, but you'd have to imagine
Other
Olympic sports, basketball, those sorts of things, it's going to have an impact on them. It absolutely is. It's going to be up to the Big Ten to figure out how to mitigate those things.
Yeah, I think it's definitely in the Olympic sports. It's going to be a bigger deal. I actually think it'll affect basketball. Basketball, they play all through the week, and those games are more less time in between them. So, and then that's going to be a big thing in the Big Ten. Also, to a degree, the Big 12. They talk a lot about basketball, but you're going to have a lot of cross country travel doing that too. So, it's a good question, and we're going to have to find out.
Yeah, it's going to be taxing on West Virginia to go to Arizona across the country, just as much as it is for Washington to visit a Michigan State. Jared Jones, Mr. Buckeye, anybody see the SEC schedule released tonight? I want to do a comparison with the big schedule, see if they tried to avoid having the big games going against each other. We might do that. I might take that under consideration, Jared, and put that up so we can get kind of what the most important dates. I kind of said tongue-in-cheek earlier. Now we know the exact date an SEC team can lose a game and still jump a undefeated ACC champion.
I don't think that they're dodging. In fact, from the ones that they were releasing and showing, kind of seems like the opposite. Like it's the first year that ESPN has them entirely. Like there's Alabama, Georgia. There's Georgia going to Texas, but it's on the same week as the F1 race. So there's not going to be a lot of hotels for Georgia fans to come in. Like there's actually a whole bunch of big games. So I don't know if they're dodging this time, but when you only have 8 games a season with the cupcakes, you don't really need to dodge, I guess.
Yeah, you know what, Jared? I might do a comparison of that for Friday night show or do a short video on the channel tomorrow, just comparing the dates of the big games to see. But I don't think we have any times listed yet. Times are still to be determined. So you could see some shuffling where the big game was Big Ten prime time. The SEC game of the week might be a 3:30 game. Jay Baller, I think your mark is for sure ahead of things, trying to make separate package for basketball. Big 12 already at the head of the class, at the top, better.
I mean, he may get his way. I definitely want to see what he has planned. He seems to be, I don't know if I want to say visionary, but he seems to be forward thinking and what he can do ahead of the curve.
Casting for Chrome, I'm going to be honest. Kids are getting soft, and these other non-contact sports are becoming more and more popular. I would disagree with you in Big Ten country anyway. Hockey is very big out here. Wrestling, I'm sure Immaculate can tell you at Iowa too. Wrestling's huge at Iowa. It's big at Ohio State, at Penn State. Hockey's big at Ohio State, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan. We're all about full contact sports in the Big Ten.
I think he's right to a degree, like in overall culture, overall. But I think that also gets hyped up a little bit. I think that there's still plenty of people who are still at it. I think the problem is at the corporate side. Like you're seeing in the NFL and what they're doing. But all that happens to happen for that is at some point in time, their returns go down. When people look at this and say, this isn't a game I want to follow anymore, and they start to see those numbers turn around, they'll change. So to me, it's more of a corporate thing than it's a culture thing.
Very good. This is one that's going to be interesting. Using deductive reasoning, which ACC teams at the end of realignment are left out in the cold?
Should I break out a little news article from 2022? I don't necessarily think anyone's going to be left out in the cold. I understand why people think that, looking at the situation as it is right now. But there are some some cases that have been going on, including one class action that involved a whole bunch of private universities. So I think that they will have something in the end. And you say which ones are going to be left behind, I'd say pretty much mostly the privates. I think once the ball starts rolling, I think the Big 12 will be a better endpoint than most people are giving it credit for right now. So we'll see.
Very good. I don't disagree with you. I think the ACC is going to exist in some form.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily buy the Ivy League part of it, but I think the ACC will exist in some form.
I should show. Did I show you that? I think I showed you that case, the class action where University of Chicago is part of it, and they settled, which is basically guilty.
Yeah.
And that
no
basically
contest.
that basically means everyone else in there is guilty too. And if they're colluding to do that pricing of the scholarship athletes together, they're working together. So, and that's like a whole bunch of names that you will recognize of private universities. So I tend to think that they've had some discussions. We'll see.
What changes would you guys make to the transfer recruiting schedule? It needs work. For starters, I would limit it to one transfer. Kids transfer multiple times is getting to be ridiculous. You get one transfer.
This is one of those cases where I think it needs to be a little bit more like the NFL. It's too chaotic. And it's not that I want to take away from the students, because I don't, but it's at some point in time, if it's just taken away from the product, from the game, from the ability to put together a team as a cohesive unit, we're going to get to that point. We are almost there. So at some point in time, we're all going to have to say, okay, how many times? Is it just once? Do you sign a contract? Is it within the same conference? I don't know. But at some point in time, I do think there's going to be some limitations.
Sergeant Pickles brings up that the Huskies men's and women's have club hockey, but also access to the Kraken facilities. That's the NHL team out in Seattle. Shouldn't be too hard to bring them up to D1. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, bring it. Bring it. Greg Pfluger will tell you the same thing.
There'll be plenty of hockey for you in the Big Ten.
Yeah. Plenty of hockey around here.
Even Notre Dame.
Got Notre Dame in our conference for hockey. They dodged the November 2nd weekend where the Big has its best games. LSU, Alabama, Texas have byes, and Oklahoma plays Maine. Definitely do a comparison, Mo, and I'd love to see it. Yeah, I'll work on that. I think it'd be interesting to see. Still thinking Ivy West of Stanford, California, Rice, Tulane, USF, Duke, Wake, Boston College, Syracuse, and service academies will happen.
Take USF out of that. But all the rest, yeah, I think all the rest of that could be part of it, along with the Ivies.
What rules as far as portal and NIL do you see in the future? I don't see any, because, each year it's getting worse and worse, and nobody's coming up with a solution.
I think once they get autonomous governance away from the NCAA and say like the A4 is over Division I and their ability to actually do some precise rules, I think we'll get something then. But as long as the NCAA is in charge, it's going to be all about proving how the NCAA can't do this. So it's going to be chaotic until that's no longer the case.
Yeah. MH5, great article in the USA Today on November 6th that outlined the NCAA being fearful of Fox wanting to create a tournament to challenge the NIT tournament, seeing that as a precursor move to take more of the basketball postseason. Well, I think they have every right to be worried. That is the cash cow of the NCAA, that basketball tournament.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we saw that. I think it wasn't too long after that came out. The NCAA announced some changes in terms of who's going to get invited to the NIT. Like, it was pretty obvious. It was, and so that's why I don't think that that tournament in Vegas is going to happen. It was just pretty much kind of a power play. They got what they wanted.
With the judges ruling today, what's your opinion about letting players immediate eligibility? How do you think it'll end? I have issues with the immediate eligibility part without established residency. What do you think?
I don't really know enough to judge. I'm not a fan of just pure open kind of chaos, but at the same time, I haven't been a fan of this controlling and uneven judgment that we've seen from the NCAA. So I don't know, and I think that it really comes down to each individual case. But I think the NCAA's unequal judgment is what has brought this about. So, I'm okay with this, but I hope this then leads to something a little more sensible.
Very good. Very good. We're going to wrap it up here, guys. We've been going for almost an hour and a half. Yeah, my voice is starting to crack, and Immaculate's got pad thai waiting for him.
Yeah, it's cold.
I've got a cold can of Coke Zero waiting for me out in the fridge. But I want to thank everybody who did come out. If you could, please give us a like, a subscribe. Those things cost you nothing, and they help us so much. Consider becoming a member. Like I said earlier, we're going to have some great member things coming up around the bend here, so just keep an eye on that. We're hoping to roll some of those out at the beginning of the year with a lot more value-added things that we think you guys will really enjoy. Caden's dad is late, but here we'll have to play back the beginning tomorrow. It was a fun one, Caden's dad. Little salty language. We got to talk about Kirk Herbstreit, Paul Feinbaum.
Also, I gotta ask: is the thumbs up thing on YouTube not working very well, or did we only get 3 thumbs up today the whole time?
Oh, that's all. I want to hit refresh on it and see if it does.
That's all I'm seeing. Okay, it's at 35 now. It's like, that can't be right.
I put on the Mr. Rogers wig. I want to at least get 15 guys.
I was like, come on, yeah, just for the wig alone.
Moen, you're looking a little mainstream today. Well, like I said, you'll catch it tomorrow. We might do a thing on the new members area section where people will get a vote for the next Moen look. So far, we have Ron Burgundy
in his living room. How is that mainstream?
And a plaid couch. That's a sick plaid couch.
Come on.
But yeah, we're gonna do some looks and let people vote on them to see what they think, and we'll let them pick the Moen look for that night. Thank you so much. Great show, guys. Horned out. Go Dogs. Appreciate it, Sergeant Pickles. Appreciate the super chat. Means a lot to us. Casting for Chrome member for 1 month. Hey, guys, nice. Coming up soon, new member icons. So it'll show how long you've been a member, what month, going from bronze, gold, silver, and all that good stuff. That's coming around the corner, too. So
appreciate the great chat and questions.
Yeah. Oh, you guys make it easy. It's a little
We personally love this part. This is my favorite part of doing this, is from coming up in chat and doing Greg's shows and hanging out with everyone and being able to kind of get everyone involved. That's really what I like to do. So thanks, everyone.
Booby night, I guess.
football, baby.
And Aristotle running the show tonight. I guess you're supposed to be Aristotle.
Oh, all right, I'll take that.
I want to know how he knows what Aristotle looks like. It's been longer than a month. It might have been casting for Chrome. We run a program called StreamYard. I don't have the YouTube end of things pulled up. It's probably 2 months, but we appreciate it regardless of how long it is. If you've been a member for a day or a year, you don't know how much it means to us, guys. That helps us keep the lights on around here. So do you have any closing thoughts you want to give them, Immaculate?
Let's see. I say just keep paying attention. Right now, I think we're going to have something come down next month. But these law cases right now, the legal cases going on right now, it's dry, it's kind of boring, but it's important. So, we can go into a little bit more if people have questions on that. I am following a couple lawyers on X who focus on this stuff. But just stick tight, folks. Hang on. We're in for quite a ride here.
Thank you for the $20 super sticker, Opie. Nice. Much appreciated. Let's see what this sound drop is.
Very well. I know who did it. You do? And furthermore, I'm going to tell you how it was all done.
That was you, Opie. We know who did it. We know how it was all done. Much appreciated, Opie. I can't stress that enough. That means the world to not only me and Immaculate, but Nate and Wild Ute as well. Getting support like that. You guys have been a great chat tonight. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Moen After Dark. It's a little free-flowing thing here. We like to party a little bit. Next time when I'm not having a cold, I'll get the bottle of Crown Royal out and my little brass shot glasses, and we'll take shots every time we bring up Georgia Tech.
Ooh, that one could get spicy.
For the love of God and my doctors, try and keep the Georgia Techs to a minimum, people. All right.
Georgia Tech.
Thanks so much, guys. Peace out. Hope everybody has a great evening.